all are coming here, coming to Mahāsatipatthāna Center and practice Satipatthāna according to Mahāsatipatthāna Sutta. The opening passage from this sutta, the benefits of Satipatthāna, Buddha said, Ekayāna yam bhikkhave Magga sattana visuddhiya, etc. Bhikkhus, this is the only way for the purifications of beings, for the overcoming of sorrow and lamentation, for the disappearance of pain and grief, for reaching the noble path, for the realizations of Nibbana, namely the four foundations of mindfulness. You need to remember this passage. This passage is just a summary of the four foundations of mindfulness, but it is important that yogis who practice the foundations of mindfulness understand this passage correctly and clearly. The method of the practice of mindfulness, or the four foundations of mindfulness, was discovered by the Buddha. He practices himself and got the best results from this practice. And then for 45 years, he taught the four foundations of mindfulness many times. After his death, these methods were collected and recorded in what is known as the Pali Canon. Ekayāna yam bhikkhave Magga. It is the only way for the purifications of beings, namely the four foundations of mindfulness. So at the very beginning, Buddha said, Ekayāna, this is the only way. The four foundations of mindfulness, or the practice of mindfulness, is the only way for the purifications of beings. The meanings of Ekayāna. Ekayāna is composed of two parts, Eka and Ayana. Ayana means way, path, or road, and Eka means one. So it means one way. This one way is interpreted to mean one way which has no branch. There is just one way, and if you tread this way, you will surely reach your destination. There are no misleading branch of this way. And the second meaning of Ekayāna is that this is the way to be taken by one. It is the way to be taken by the individual only. That means when you are treading on this path, or when you are treading on this way, you are alone. You have no companion, because you make progress or you do not make progress, depending on your own capabilities. And also, this word is interpreted to mean the way of the one. The one here means the Buddha. The Buddha was the best of beings, and so he was called the one. And this is the way discovered and taught by the Buddha. So this is called the way of the One, the way of the Buddha. And also it is interpreted to mean the only way. It is the only way. There is no other way for the purifications of being and so on. And also it is only existing in Buddha's dispensation. It is the way that goes solely to Nibbana, where there is no aging, sickness, sorrow, lamentation, and death. You want to reach that place where there is no aging, sickness, and death. If you practice, you will reach your destination. Now, with regard to the translation, the only way, there are two questions. One is that here, all foundations of mindfulness mean mindfulness only. But there are other factors of the Noble Eightfold Path. So are the other factors also not the way to purifications of beings? The answer is that they are also the way to purifications of beings. But they do not exist without mindfulness. So when mindfulness is mentioned, they are virtually mentioned. That is, although mindfulness alone is mentioned here, we should understand that all the other seven factors that are concomitant with the noble path are also implied. The other question raised by some people is, why did Buddha say this is the only way? Are there no other ways for the purifications of beings? They argue that there are different roads to reach a city, just as there are different roads to a city. There must be different ways to reach purifications of beings or to reach Nibbana. Some people do not like this, or they thought the Buddha would not have said, Ekayāna, this is the only way. Sometimes analogies are not really correct. It is true that there are different roads to reach this town, but they are roads, they are not marshes or forests. And so the road is the only way to reach this town. There are different roads, but they are roads. In the same way, there may be different ways of practicing mindfulness, but they must be mindfulness. Only mindfulness can lead us to the attainment of Nirvana, where there is no aging, sickness, and death. Also, if we say physical exercise is the only way to build big muscle, no one would object to that. If you want to build big muscle, you have to do physical exercise. Without physical exercise, you cannot hope to build big muscle. But physical exercise can take different forms, such as weightlifting or using machine and so on. In the same way, mindfulness is the only way to reach Nirvana. But mindfulness may take different forms. Even in this discourse on the foundations of mindfulness practice is taught in 21 ways. There are 21 different kinds of mindfulness practice, to choose from. So it is correct to say that this is the only way. So mindfulness is the only way. People may argue here because the word used here is Ekayāna, one way. But in another place, in the Dhammapada, Buddha said clearly, this alone is the way and there is no other way for the purity of wisdom. So we cannot argue that Buddha said there is any other way. He expressly said that this alone is the way and there is no other way. So we must accept that this is the only way for the purifications of beings. If we consider it with reference to the practice, it becomes more clear. You understand that mindfulness is like a guard, and once the guard is removed, anything can come in. So as long as mindfulness is at the six and doors, our minds are pure. No unwholesome mental state can come into our minds because mindfulness is there, guarding these six and doors. Once mindfulness is removed, or once we lose mindfulness, all these mental defilements come in. So mindfulness is the only way to keep our mind pure. And we need to note here also that mindfulness is one of the 8 factors of the Noble Eightfold Path described in the Dhammapada. And if the Eightfold Path is the only way, then mindfulness surely is the only way too. Again, mindfulness may take different forms, such as mindfulness of the body, Ekayāna, mindfulness of feeling, Vedana, mindfulness of consciousness, Ekayāna, mindfulness of Dharma objects, or mindfulness of parts of the body, and so on. So if it is mindfulness, it is the only way for the purifications of beings. Satana Visuddhiya, for the purifications of beings, that means for the purifications of the minds of beings, because Buddha is more concerned about the purifications of mind than the purifications of the physical body. Although it does not mean that we do not take care of the cleanliness of the physical body, what is more important for us is the cleanliness of our minds. So the purifications of beings here means purifications of minds of beings. In the commentaries, it is said that personal cleanliness or cleanliness of the body, as well as the cleanliness of the place, are conducive to concentration and wisdom. So we also need to keep our bodies clean and keep the place where we meditate clean. Although we are not to neglect the cleanliness of the body, we should be more concerned about the cleanliness of our minds. So here Buddha said that mindfulness is the only way for the purifications of minds of beings. With this passage, Buddha mentions the benefits we will get from the practice of mindfulness. The first benefit the Buddha mentioned is Sattana Visuddhiya, purifications of mind. Then Buddha said, Sokha Paridevana Samatikamaya, for the overcoming of sorrow and lamentation. If we want to overcome sorrow and lamentation or crying aloud, we should practice mindfulness ardently. Mindfulness is the only way to overcome our sorrow and lamentation. Here, sorrow is a mental state. Lamentation is crying aloud through sorrow and saying these things and saying that things. To overcome sorrow and lamentation also, we should practice the foundations of mindfulness. Then, dukkha domanasana atingamaya, for the disappearance of pain and grief. Pain here means physical pain, kayika vedana, pain in the body. And grief means mental pain, itasika vedana, depression, ill will, hatred. All these are included in the words grief, domanasa. For the overcoming and disappearance of pain and grief, we should practice the foundations of mindfulness. As you understand, you may not conquer pain, you may not overcome pain altogether. Pain may not disappear altogether. But if you practice mindfulness, you will be able to live with pain and accept it. Like that of the Venerable Anuruddha, your mind will not be disturbed. Your mind will not be perturbed by the physical pain. If your mind is not perturbed by physical pain, pain is virtually non-existent. So for the disappearance of pain, or for the overcoming of pain, we should practice mindfulness meditation. Believe you can overcome pain and grief. For the overcoming of grief, overcoming of evil, depression and so on, we should practice mindfulness meditation. Grief is a mental state and sorrow is also a mental state. They are actually connected with each other. These are mental states, and so these mental states can be overcome, or these mental states can be made to disappear or can be avoided by the practice of mindfulness. If you observe your mind continuously, you understand. Mind cannot take two things or more than one thing at a time. Your mind can only take one object at a time. If mind could take two or more things at a time, our suffering would be much greater. Since mind can take only one thing at a time, we can overcome sorrow and grief by the practice of mindfulness. For example, let us take anger. Suppose I'm angry with Mr. A. So long as my mind is on Mr. A, my anger will increase and I will be getting more and more angry with him because I'm taking him as the object of my consciousness or mind. But once I turn my mind from Mr. A, who is the source of my anger, to anger itself, the moment I turn my mind to anger itself, noting anger, 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 if I note continuously, Mr. A does not exist for me at the time. The person has already disappeared from my mind. When my mind is on the anger itself, noting anger, 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 when the source of anger has disappeared, anger has to disappear also. That way, we treat such mental state with mindfulness, with just simple but strong or forceful mindfulness. It is how meditators deal with what are called emotions, such as attachment, anger, hatred, depression, and sorrow. You understand the instruction. When there arise attachment, notice attachment faithfully. When there arise anger, hatred, depression, sorrow, you have to note accordingly, ardently. They all disappear. Whatever the mental state, we just treat it with mindfulness and try to be mindful of it. When our mindfulness is really strong, the kinds of mental states will surely disappear. So Buddha said, Soka paridevana samadhikamaya dukkha domnasana atingamaya. This is the only way to overcome sorrow and lamentation and to overcome pain and grief. When you practice, you will understand. And Buddha said, Nyayasa Dikamaya. This is the only way for reaching the noble path. Path, as a technical term, is a name for the group of 8 factors of the path: right understanding, right thinking, right speech, right action, right livelihood, right effort, right mindfulness, and right concentration that arise at the moment of enlightenment. The type of consciousness that arises at the moment of enlightenment that is accompanied by these factors is called path consciousness, Magga. The word enlightenment is another technical word whose meaning is not easy to understand. People use this word quite freely, but only a few might understand its meaning properly. Without definition, it is vague. It may mean different things to different persons. Enlightenment for a Buddhist may be quite different from enlightenment for other religions. When we talk about enlightenment, first we should define it. According to Buddhism, enlightenment means the eradication of mental defilements and seeing Nirvana directly, seeing Nirvana face to face at the same time. When a meditator practices vipassana meditation, and progress from one stage to another, to higher and higher stages. As the result of this vipassana practice, a time will come when in his mind a type of consciousness arises which he has not experienced before. That type of consciousness, along with its mental concomitants, is so powerful that it can eradicate mental defilements altogether, not to come back again. At the same time, it takes Nibbana as object. So what we mean by enlightenment is what happens at that moment. A moment when that consciousness arises, that consciousness eradicates mental defilements, that consciousness takes Nibbana as object. That consciousness is called Magga, path consciousness. Immediately following that path consciousness, Magga, are 2 or 3 moments of fruition consciousness, Phalajeta. We have to understand Abhidhamma to understand this fully. So for reaching the noble path simply means for gaining enlightenment. When you really reach the noble path, you become enlightened and you are able to eradicate mental defilements and take Nibbana as object. So you can enjoy Nibbana if you practice this Satipatthāna. And finally, Buddha said, Nibbanasa Sitikiriyaya. This is the only way for the realizations of Nibbana. It is the same thing as reaching the noble path. So when meditator reach the noble path, when the path consciousness arises in him or her, and that consciousness takes Nibbana as object, that is when yogi is said to have realized Nibbana. So reaching the noble path and reaching the Nibbana, reaching realizations of Nibbana mean the same thing. So you need to fully understand the benefits of the practice and you continuously practice and you can gain all these benefits. So we'll continue tomorrow. We have to stop our discourse for today. By practicing Satipatthāna Vipassana meditation, by observing every phenomena occurring at the 6 senses, by noting rising, falling, sitting, stretching, bending, seeing, hearing, smelling, tasting, touching continuously and meticulously. May all yogis be liberated from all suffering. May all meditators realize the real peace in the very near future. So,